Okay, we'll start this meeting, regular Oscoda Township meeting, December 8th, 2014. Be our final meeting this year. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can have roll call, please.
Mr. Hinckley.
Here.
Ms. McGuire.
Here.
Mr. Gajewski.
Here.
Mr. Binkowski.
Here.
Ms. Krasko here. Mr. Weed.
Here.
Mr. Fire.
Here. All present and accounted for. Next, agenda additions. Is there anybody that has a question or a concern or an addition to our agenda as presented? Okay. Public comment. We have two public comments. Each one, a person has 4 minutes to speak. One right now and one at the very end of the meeting. So do you have any cards, Bob?
We do not.
No cards, okay. There is another chance, as I said, at the very end of this agenda. So. Okay, consent agenda is the next item. And involves the minutes of the last, tonight it turns out 2 minutes, a regular meeting and a special meeting.
Jim, actually, there should be a third on there because we did have a closed session and there were closed session minutes.
Okay, all right, so 3. Do we have those closed session minutes?
No, I don't make those public. They're in my office if you need to see them.
Okay. And we have a financial report to the tune of $184,649. Any questions on the minutes? Any concerns? Okay. How about the payment, the bills? $184,649. Anything there? Okay, then the third part of the consent agenda are items that are informational items. And we have one, I believe, from Mr. Stalker regarding Dwight Street electrical bill involving the Pocket Park and the Rotary Club. Any questions on that? No action needed on these information. And Ann has one that deals with the wastewater treatment facility dining hall demolition project. Anything there that anybody has? Once again, for informational items, they don't involve or require any kind of action or vote or anything like that. I think those of you that are in the audience have a chance to pick up our agenda and you can see what these two things are about. So, well, if there's no questions, I need a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved. Support.
Moved by Mr. Binkowski with support from Mr. Gajewski that we do adopt the consent agenda as presented. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weed.
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley.
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Binkowski.
Yes.
Mr. Gajewski.
Yes.
Ms. McGuire.
Yes.
Mr. Fire.
Yes. Motion carried. Next, we go to Mr. Stalker's superintendent report, action items that do involve voting and discussion. The first item is a lease renewal for the building that we're in tonight, the State Street Square building, which is owned by the township, and that's where we have our meetings here tonight. Bob?
Yes, thank you. Given the practice we followed for the past several years, a letter was sent out to the singular tenant we now have in the building, at least in terms of renewal prospects. That being Alexander Business Machines, inquiring as to interest for 2015. The tenant has indicated a desire to renew the lease. We talked about a 2% increase, so we would be moving from $1,700 to $1,734 per month for calendar year 2015. We've updated the existing lease document with the new rental term and rental amount, and authorization is being sought for the supervisor and clerk to execute the document, subject to concurring execution by our tenant.
Okay, is there any discussion regarding this renewal and 2% increase? I think last year there was no increase, is that right? You know, we're coming off some really rough economic times and construction of the road in 2012, so, anybody? Everybody okay with this? And if they are,
I'll make a motion that we execute the lease.
okay. Support. Motion has been made by Ms. McGuire with support from Mr. Weed that we do execute this new lease with Alexander Business Machine in the State Street Square building. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Pinkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes. Motion carried. Next item, pickup truck bids for the water and sewer department.
Yes, in keeping with our capital improvement plan, we recently solicited bids to purchase a pickup truck. This specific purchase would be focused primarily on the water department, although it could be used by both, as our supervisor indicates. We had budgeted a sum of $30,000 originally in the capital improvement plan to purchase a van. However, in discussion with our own DPW staff and some of the folks from F&V, it was suggested that a pickup truck would better meet our needs. So that's the basis upon which the solicitation was distributed. I provided a copy of the RFP that went out. We received 3 proposals, which are identified in the bid tabulation sheet. We've also identified the vendors that we solicited to get pricing. For purposes of comparison, we looked at the My Deal program, the bulk purchase program through the state, if you will, and it appears that the most cost-effective proponent would be Gorno Ford through My Deal at a cost of $22,914. This would be for a 2015 F-250 Ford vehicle. So approval is being sought to move forward and purchase based upon what is considered to be the most cost-effective avenue, that being Gorno Ford.
Any discussion?
Bob, is this a two-wheel or four-wheel drive?
It's 4-wheel drive.
You know, the last 3 or 4 Ford pickups we bought, or Ford vehicles we bought, we wound up putting extra springs in the back end as additional cost. Was that into the bid this time or not?
It is not, because it's a sort of a standard purchase, particularly
So
through
we
the
gotta put more springs in it if we can't haul the load.
Potentially. My understanding is the last time we did that, it was in the front, and it was for a plow, so
And they don't come heavy enough.
yeah.
Anything else? Does the water department do a great deal of plowing?
They do some. In the case of this vehicle, it would give us the option for plowing, but I don't think that's the intent right now.
And that would be the reason for the off-road tires, I'm presuming.
Well, they do get off-road. That's the reason for the 4-wheel drive, and I think the off-road tires are part of the package. So,
I can see where it'd be part of a package, but you requested it in your list of 19 things, so whether it's part of a package or not, you are asking for it. So, they do go off-road?
they do occasionally, yes.
Because I'm thinking that the people that have water and sewer services don't live in scary places, you know, that's where off-road vehicles.
No, but you might be pulling down in a ditch with the equipment or dewatering pump or something like that, or some of those spots in Lakewood where you might have to get down into a ditch with something. That's probably the reason for it.
I might note that Mr. Hinckley used to work for the water department, so I value his input here.
And also when they're going around during the winter time and they come across deep snow or icy conditions, they're gonna need that four-wheel drive.
Because a lot of those roads are private roads, you know, like the Ridge Road that we had back here not too long ago with folks that aren't plowed very well and stuff, so.
Do they have another truck and another pickup? And is it the same heavy-duty type of pickup,
We have at least one that's heavy-duty, that same type of vehicle.
capable of plowing?
It would be, yes.
Yeah.
Part of the, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Part of the rationale, I think, is carrying capacity as well,
Mhm.
for tools and equipment and supplies and that kind of thing.
Are we gonna get a cap for it like we did on the other one?
I think that is the intent. That was part of the trade-off in not getting a van, is that there was some concern that we'd be able to enclose the back. So we would be looking at that, yes.
And that would still be cheaper than what we had set aside for
For
the
a
van.
van, yeah. I'll move we go ahead with the purchase of the pickup for 22,914 from Gorno Ford.
Support.
Okay, the motion has been made by Mr. Hinckley with support from Mr. Weed that we do go ahead with a low bid of Gorno Ford of roughly rounding off $23,000. This is an extremely different lower bid. Quite a difference. The next highest bid is, rounding off again, is 30,000, 23 to 30,000.
Yes, it's, our understanding is that some of the local dealers previously were able to get some kind of a governmental pricing discount. This time they were not.
I see. I see.
Is this the same place we get our police cars from?
It is.
Yeah, so they always have generally the lowest prices anyways.
Yeah, most of the time, not always.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, we've purchased cars through Zubeck, police cars and so forth.
We have, and I think that's the differential.
Okay. Well, that's quite a difference. So, but you're confident that you got the 19 things that you've listed here in the bid proposals?
Well, we believe it is very, very close, and we provided a copy of the specifications from the state program.
I guess all members of the board know that when we've accepted low bids that are way lower than the next one, we've gotten burned quite a bit. And so I guess I'm a little shell-shocked with memories of some of the other things. So, well, okay. I'm inclined to vote no, but I see this $7,000 difference, you know. You're getting a pretty big truck for a pretty low price. I think it's more than we need. F&V actually came in and talked to us. We had a meeting about some other aspects of the whole operation, and the two top people from F&V said, you guys are buying vehicles that are too big. You know, I mean, you don't need them. And they're not too big, but they're more than what you really need because you already have other pickup trucks and maybe a light pickup or something like that. Now we have two that are capable of plowing and so forth. But, so that's stuck in my mind. I see no financial reason why they would tell us to back off on the big muscle trucks, especially since you already have one.
From my understanding, there isn't a whole lot of difference in pricing between a 150 and a 250.
There's hardly any.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, not having
And the engines are about the same.
5.7 liter.
Yeah. I mean, you could get a 5.4, but
Mhm.
that's not gonna change the mileage too much.
I talked to a gentleman that has a relatively nice Ford 150, and his comment, and he used to work for Ford, so I think he has some background in this, that the 250s will carry 2 or 3 times more than a 150.
Mhm.
Not to mention towing and everything
The
else.
towing would be more for,
More
yeah.
so than anything.
Well, again, I'm very dubious of the need for this, but the price is right, so I'm a yes, I guess. So, roll call, please.
Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. Carrasco, yes. Mr. Byer?
Yes, motion carried. All right. Okay, next item is the HUSRA budget recommendation for next year, 2015.
At the last meeting, I had presented a draft budget document that the authority board was taking under consideration. That same budget document was taken up at the December 2nd authority meeting with no changes, and the authority board acted to approve the budget for 2015, subject to concurring approval of the member municipalities. You might remember that the contribution for Oscoda Township is slated to increase about $68,000 due to a couple of factors. Primarily, that is, our percentage of the total water consumed has gone up, and that's based on a trailing October through November calendar year. And also the capital improvement expenditures projected for next year are up substantially. To offset the impact on the member municipalities, and in this case, particularly Oscoda Township, you might note also that the beginning fund balance has been increased quite a bit. So there was some recognition of that adverse impact and an effort to mute it to some extent. So in keeping with the action taken by the authority board, I'm seeking approval of the draft budget for the authority for 2015.
Okay, do we have any questions about this $68,000 increase?
Now, that could have something to do with that runway leak as well, correct?
Yes.
So next year,
But there-
chances are it will go down? If that's, I mean, do they go down? Or,
Well, if we're able to have, to limit our water loss, it should go down, but it also depends what the other municipalities are doing at the same time. So you have a lot of variables at play all the time. But yes, this is a,
The runway leak also has probably been there a number of years. We don't know that, but
indications are it's been there a while. I would say certainly it at least had an impact on the numbers that are affecting this budget.
and for those of you that missed the previous meeting, a major water leak out on the former base underneath the part of the runway. What was the water loss? Do you recall the stats on that?
No, I don't. I guess I
Okay.
don't want to
It was
speculate. It was substantial, yes,
Blockbuster, you
yeah.
know, how much water was just going into the sand underneath, so we had that fixed plus some other lesser problems.
Right.
It's the second or third time we've had water loss inspections, so. Wonder why they didn't pick it up in previous times. Did they not go out there?
I believe they did. It may not have been there. It was because it was under the concrete and the asphalt, probably harder to detect.
Okay. Now, pardon me, I need a little help here. Do we have a motion on this one?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, we do now have a motion on that. Mr. Weed is the maker of the motion with support from Mr. Hinckley. To accept the action taken by the HUSRA board regarding their draft budget for fiscal year 2015. Roll call, please.
Ms. Carrasco, yes. Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes. Motion carried. Next, we've been talking about a new and much larger generator for the Township Hall. And we're seeking a USDA grant for this. So Bob, you want to fill us in on?
Sure. You might recall in the budget work sessions, we had talked about this project, and one of our budget reconciliation moves for 2015 was to pursue grant funding for at least a portion of the generator. The existing generator is older, it raises some reliability questions, and you might recall also that it doesn't service the entire township hall. In fact, there are some doors in the fire department that it does not open because of the number of circuits it can power. So based on the fact that our budget, which has now been adopted, assumes receipt of the grant, and also the fact that the program administrator suggested that the sooner we apply, the better in terms of sort of getting our foot in the door in the federal fiscal year, our police chief has put together some grant materials which would have the USDA providing $13,000 and the township $12,000 towards a total budget of $25,000. I've attached the application materials for your review. I note that our township supervisor has executed them. That was an overly proactive staff request and a little bit of a miscommunication, but they've not been submitted. The intent was to seek the board's approval for that. So we're looking for authorization to submit those forms and again seek $13,000, which we could apply towards the $25,000 generator replacement cost in the upcoming fiscal year.
The one we have now is something that was passed along to us, or did we buy that new?
I don't know, frankly. I think it predates my tenure in Oscoda
Really?
Township.
Okay. Okay.
New.
Hmm?
That was new back when.
Yeah.
I can't remember, it was in the 70s, I think they put that thing in.
What size generator is it?
I do not know. I certainly can get details if board members would be interested in that.
Yeah, $22,000 generator.
It's big.
Well, the one we have now,
25.
what part of the township hall will it service?
The police department and a portion of the fire department. I believe the north side of the fire hall.
But this one will take care of the whole township hall.
Correct.
So the
So you-
treasurer and the clerk have to stay at their desk if there's a power outage. They can't close up
Yeah.
and say, we don't have any powers.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty boring, too.
What's your intent on the one we have over there now, Bob?
We haven't really discussed that at this point. I would think we would try to sell it, but
Does the DPW have one? You ever try to open one of them doors when the power went out in the wintertime to get the plows out?
yeah. No, I don't believe they do.
That one would,
I think there's a portable, but I don't know if they have a hookup.
yeah.
There's also the generator inside the blower room there at the wastewater plant. There's a big cat generator, that thing. So I mean, that's something to look at down the road disposing of or
Yeah. they got
scrapping or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be.
That's not the one they use for the lift stations?
No, there's a portable one for that. This one's
Oh, I
in
thought
the
that's what you
building.
said.
No,
It's
this
part of
one's in the building. But there, yeah, the portable one is a different one.
Yeah. The one Mr. Hinckley's speaking of, I think, was backup for the wastewater
Mhm.
facility itself, so it's large.
It's huge.
I think Martin's idea is a good one, to, check with the DPW situation before we start selling stuff.
Sure.
If it's in a condition that's worth,
Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
if it's
worth
conditional.
it.
Yeah.
It's gonna require more maintenance than it's worth.
It's
Yeah.
operational now, so.
That's why I said,
Mhm.
check with the DPW and not just haul it out there and hook it out. So,
I'll move, we go ahead with the grant application.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Hinckley with support from, I believe, Mr. Gajewski, that we do go ahead with the USDA Rural Development Grant application for a total amount of $13,000 to purchase a new generator to run the township hall. Did you write all that down?
I did.
Good. All right.
You want to say it again, just in case?
No. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gajewski?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Pankowski?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes. Okay. Carrie, moving on to Bob's final item, the telecommunications matter, revised recommendation.
So we had talked about this at the last meeting, and the board had authorized accepting the recommendations from CBI relative to our telecommunications. That would have resulted in savings of $465 a month. When we went back and talked about implementation, they revisited their recommendation, noticed that there were some monthly setup fees in the fine print on the proposal from Pioneer Long Distance that frankly they had overlooked. They brought that to our attention. That essentially negates the basis of the original recommendation to move to Pioneer long distance, and they're suggesting now that we look at option one, which would involve moving to different long distance service plans with charter in the case of the bulk of our accounts, and with AT&T in the case of the accounts that service Old Orchard Park. Therefore, the resulting cost savings would be reduced to $409 per month. Still substantial, but not quite as good as we were looking at before. I thought since the board had acted on the recommendation that it was appropriate to bring back the revision and seek your concurrence before we move forward, assuming you're inclined to do that.
Any questions or discussion? Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Okay.
Support.
All right, the motion to accept the revised recommendation from CBI Communications is from Ms. McGuire, and I believe the support came from Mr. Okay, Binkowski. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire? Yes. Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Ms. Crosco, yes. Mr. Fire?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay. We go to the next segment of our agenda, and that is the Community Development Coordinator, Ann Richards, and she has an item involving farm market development here in Oscoda.
Okay, thanks. At the August 25th meeting, I provided the board information about the potential change in direction in regard to the DDA's indoor farm market. As you might recall, a rural development grant has been secured by the DDA with the Township agreeing to act as the pass-through agency for this project. Unfortunately, the DDA was unsuccessful in obtaining the building it identified for this project and has now switched gears from the indoor concept to more of an open-air pavilion building. The grant agency has provided the initial approval to make this switch, and the Farm Market Board has toured the downtown and identified several locations, the first preference being the west side of the Oscoda Beach Park along Lake Street in between River Road and Michigan Avenue. At the October DDA meeting, discussion took place in regard to the pavilion design, proposed location of the pavilion on the property, ingress and egress, etc. And it was requested by the DDA that I reach out to Russo Engineering in order for them to provide some direction in regard to these elements. Based on previous discussion at different work sessions over the last couple of years, the Township Board has seemed to express an interest in making some upgrades to the Beach Park River Road entrance. So I felt it might make sense to possibly have Russo look at both projects at the same time in order to ensure an aesthetic continuity between the two. The price provided by Russo to complete this work is estimated at approximately $4,400. Again, these are concept drawings. They're not necessarily engineered configurations, but it does involve a topo survey of the area, getting the lines of the area. So the concepts are for the Farm Market Pavilion as well as the Beach Park entrance. And the engineer has identified that $4,400 as being approximately $3,300 for the farm market component, which would be the DDA share, and $1,100 for the Beach Park entrance. So I will be providing, we have a DDA meeting tomorrow. I will be providing this information for the DDA board for them to act as well. So concept pictures, the same ones that were shared in your report, in my report this evening, were also shared with Russo Engineering. Again, like giving some ideas of maybe an overhead or the over-the-road sign and the possible roundabout concept at the beach park. So with that, I'm looking to see if the township would like to partner with the DDA on this, their share being approximately $1,100. So, and the thought was we, again, the farm market concept, the look of the pavilion that we liked, the size of the building, how much square feet, or how many acres of land would need that, where would you place it, so that it made the most sense for, getting in, getting out, like looked well with the rest of the beach park, all those kind of things with the property lines and the zoning differences and everything else. So that's why before we got too far down the road, we thought we better bring Russo Engineering in to see if that space is even suited for the pavilion, as well as everything else that the township board's already done at the beach park, all the other improvements. So.
Okay. What are your thoughts, board?
What were the other locations the farm board had selected?
We had looked at Furtaw Field, basically,
Oh, just those two locations?
just those
No.
two locations.
3.
Well, and then the old,
The-
right, and the original, I'm sorry, the original former IGA, or the Dollar
Oh,
General
so this
building.
wasn't anything recent then?
This was in August or September.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
They did quite a walking tour, mostly of the IGA location with the township parking lot to the immediate north of it. And they took a look at the area we're talking about between Lake Street and the beach. They really like that. I asked them about, it's not in sight from US 23, that was a big concern of mine. And they said, hey, this is great right here, with the proper signage, on 23 and stuff. I mean, that's a must, proper signage, to the south and the north. But they thought, if you can make this, a place that people can get to and see once they're there, it's fantastic. They didn't particularly like Furtaw Field. Big advantage, that the number one site is that it would provide more walkers around the community. It's in the center of the town, only a block away from the main stoplight, whereas Furtaw Field is really, kind of north of the main flow of business. So I think Furtaw, not that they're in the driver's seat, but they do know what they're doing. And, I've said this before, Michigan is second in all the 50 states in farm market involvement. So some of these people have had quite a bit of training, and I value their judgment. But Furtaw was last on their list, and trying to get the IGA building was probably in the middle, and the one we're talking about was a high first. So.
Has the DDA worked out the details on how the building will be managed, other than farm market activities?
No.
Yeah, well, that's not to say that they won't, because, I mean, the farm market thing is one day a week in part of the year. I think I know where you're going with this. I mean, so it certainly can be used for other things and stuff, so would you agree?
Well, right, I just was answering that we hadn't discussed that part yet.
Right.
Because we need to find out in theory how the layout would be, sorry, I'm echoing, where the location, is gonna work the best. Because depending on where the location is gonna kind of be a driving force of what else the use would be. I mean, I would see that if it was at the beach park, it could be a good use possibly for, to combine in with the art on the beach concept as well. Maybe some of the vendors wouldn't need to have pop-up tents and they would wanna set up there, so.
My concern is the technical issues of
Mhm.
that the DDA can do things that a township can't do. Such as the DDA can do for-profit work, they can selectively rent, a township cannot do that.
Mhm.
My concern is we've invested a lot in that property that we own there, is that correct, Bob? So, I mean, shouldn't we have like a overall plan for the entire block and not just for a portion of it? I mean, we don't wanna just throw something up there and go, okay, well, we're just gonna put that there and then not have a plan for the entire property, plus we don't even own the whole block yet at this point. We're Furtaw Field, and then if we do something like that and come up with a plan for that entire block, make it like a, I don't know, another kind of hot spot for people to have activities and different things, which is what we were kind of leaning towards trying to do at Furtop Field, then where does that leave Furtop Field? So,
And is this gonna have an impact on, because this is basically a residential neighborhood surrounding this, correct? Is that gonna have any impact on that, limited to the activities that go on, so as not to totally disrupt the, not
It's
necessarily the
actually
farmer's
zoned,
market,
yeah,
but
it's
other
zoned
things that may
commercial.
be going on. I'm
It
sorry?
is zoned
It's zoned
commercial.
commercial.
So it doesn't matter,
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
Well, it
I
doesn't
mean,
matter,
zoned
but-
right doesn't mean you would ignore their thoughts or.
It would have an impact, but certainly one could assume it would be a lesser impact than what the original intended use of the property was when the township began assembling it, which was a commercial lodging establishment of some kind.
Multi-story,
Potentially, yes.
Correct.
block out your view of the lake thing, yeah.
I guess back to your question, Jamie, or point, I had asked Russo to maybe look at the whole beach park as a whole, along with the pavilion, or the farmer's market component, because we've been talking or tossing around ideas about dog parks, the splash pad, all those things, and kind of looking at the whole, the whole area, to lay things out, and that price was closer to $8,000 to do that. But again, we don't own the property, like you said, we don't own a couple of those chunks of property in that island anyways.
well, and we
So-
weren't gonna put the splash pad either there. That was going to go over by the bathhouse, correct?
Correct.
I'm talking about just the block that we own.
Right.
As far as what we've invested into it already, do we wanna just go, yeah, let's do a farm market and just put that there and not have a plan for the rest of it? Or not think about the project as a whole overall, in the future? Because we had talked about similar things happening at Furtop Field, like the ice skating rink and those type of things again. We have 5 parks already. We gotta really, to me, I think we need to really have a bigger plan first before you just start.
Yeah, I agree with that. When we do something, rather than make it look all piecemeal, that we have one large-scale plan that says, this is all what we're gonna do. We'll take care of a little bit parts of it, but when it comes together, it will look like one nice big thing instead of a bunch of little things meshed together. Like with Furtop Field, like you asked, where does that leave us? I mean, here we have this big field that could, be a shining star of this community here because everybody drives by and sees it, where the beach park is not seen by most people that go through this area.
But should be.
It should
But
be,
it's
and
not.
I agree,
And
but
it's not-
I think we
and it's
better.
not going to be.
Well, in
for a long
reality,
time.
wouldn't this farm market, couldn't it take most of that block? I mean, if you,
That's
I mean,
kinda where
look
we're-
at what they're
yes.
packing in down here.
Yeah.
And if you went from River Road to Michigan, and we only have half of that lot, I mean, I think it's about the same amount of property.
Well, that's-
I mean, you
yeah.
might have people lined up, you're gonna have your building in the middle, but not everybody's gonna fit under that building. You're gonna have people on the outside.
Right.
So I would think you would.
And
Well,
that
I was
was
going
the-
by the
right.
drawing in here, and I thought it was just like the front corner that's on
I
Blake
saw
in
that,
Michigan.
but I don't
Oh,
think
okay.
that's yeah, I saw what you were, yeah, but I would think you would use the whole stretch fronting on,
No, that just
Lake Street.
identified the different lot
The different
lines.
lot,
That was done
okay.
by Nancy. It
Yeah.
just showed the different lot lines
I
that were
mean,
there. 'cause the
I could
township
see
owns the
most of
two.
that being used,
Mhm.
and then to
The-
throw a little
right.
parking in there, or the ability for people to park. I
In
mean-
theory, it was to bring Russo in to look at the existing trees, because there's some beautiful large trees that are there. How would you lay out the building with what is already there and complement everything? And then also be user-friendly for the farm market as well. They're currently putting up a building in the Tawas City, and Russo Engineering designed that building. They've put parking right around there with crushed rock, but our thought was to not necessarily put rock around there. It was to stay with the green belt, kind of like the farm market in Texas Township, because you're only encouraging people, the vendors, to park there once a week. So we didn't want to take away from the grass aspect, and then the thought again about the ice skating is I had mentioned that to Russo Engineering, that we had talked about the farm market possibly being an ice skating rink in the winter. Either it could be flooded, or we've talked about that artificial ice before. So when we lay out the building, we're gonna look at that concept as well to see, would it make sense, like this Texas Township has kind of a crucifix, a T shape, but does that make sense for our needs, or would it be a long, narrow building, wide, would it go out to the sides? Those are all the, the discussions that need to take place by the way that the land is laid out and what the trees are there and the end use, so.
So if we're going to do all that stuff on that block, then we wouldn't need for Top Field to do any of those community things.
You would still potentially have it for the festivals and so on that happen, and then, right? So there's other community things that happen there, I guess that would be your decision, so, right?
I think that's part of the question here that we're maybe going to be dealing with is both in the case of the property on Lake Street and for Top Field. There were, for differing reasons, plans on commercial redevelopment, private use of the property. Now we're talking about public use. And the farm market concept is sort of the first foot through that door, and if everybody's comfortable with that, then that's obviously the direction we should go. But that is a sort of a fundamental shift from what the thinking was when the property was assembled 15 or 20 years ago. So and I think going back to one of the earlier questions that was asked, I think the assumption coming out of the DDA meeting and that we had talked about, at least preliminarily here, was that there would be some kind of shared responsibility between the township and the DDA for maintenance of the improvements if they were to occur there, which is yet to be defined.
Our part of this is simply looking at the roundabout concept, which we have all kind of agreed we would like down at the beach park, correct? That's our part of it.
For this leg. Well, and obviously the farm market concept as well. I mean, DDA is funding the concept, but it would be brought back to you with ideas.
Yeah.
And if we want, right now we do have, Mr. Byer sits on the DDA board as well as as well as Martin. So, we can, they can bring either information back, or you can have another representation, representative, I should say, come, when we start discussing that. Or it can be, obviously, it would be presented back to the township board, so.
Well, I agree with Jamie as far as much forward planning as possible, rather than piecemeal. I think Aaron bought into that also. One further thing that I would like to have brought before the DDA board is the prospect of us having at least a year. If we're going to, if you want to say, let's have some action, let's do something, let's build, how about straightening out that road that goes down there and the roundabout and so forth? Because that eastern end of River Road is really sad, Sidewalks are all nice and stuff. But, and that would be the construction for 2015. And I'd like to see us try, just an idea here, try the farm market on that site for a year and see how it goes with the proper signage and so forth again, but not really put the big bucks into a building like that until we see how that goes. As far as have a traditional farmer's market like we have in front of the Chamber of Commerce in Oscoda now with
I hear what you're saying,
Yeah,
but in
right.
the same sense, I can pretty safely, and I shouldn't speak for somebody else, but I can safely say that the farm market would probably not want to take the chance of moving it for one season, not knowing if that's where it's gonna stay, just because they've done, that's their biggest fear is moving things, and when you jump around a lot, people get confused, they get angry, that kind of stuff. So, I can certainly mention that to them, that theory of just potentially moving it for a season, but then they would be, I'm just not sure how that would be
okay.
I think
received
that's a
jumping around.
wonderful idea, because it's then a good test as to whether it's
Yeah.
valid for the
You're
funds
still
to be
going to
spent
be
on it.
you're still going to be spending good money on
Because if-
fixing up the road down there, and again the proper. I can't say enough. the signs have gotta be right. And if they're right, the people will find it.
Because if it doesn't, if we build a building, move the farmer's market in there, and it doesn't turn out well, it'd probably be best for them to move from there again anyways.
How much is the grant for?
$80,500.
And maybe there's some time constraints on that, you know, that I'm not factoring into my thinking here, that if you don't spend this money by next week, you lose it or something like that. I exaggerate here, but I don't know, just a thought that, you know, if possible, trying it, you know, spending the construction money on the two things that I mentioned twice already, and waiting until 16 to put the building up.
I like that if it's possible.
If it's possible.
I like the idea, don't get me wrong, I like the idea of the farmer's market at the beach and creating an atmosphere down there. But I just don't like leaving Furtaugh Field hanging out there with nothing gonna happen there. I mean, it's one or the other, and what are we gonna do with Furtaugh Field if we decide to make that block, which, again, we don't own all of it, you know, our focal point instead of Furtaugh Field? I just would like to see a plan, that's all.
Now, we gave accolades to the group that came in and picked that spot over Furtaugh Field when we started discussing this, and now it sounds like we're going against what they said to do, and we want Furtaugh Field.
No, I'm not saying I want Furtaugh
I mean,
Field.
that's what, the way I'm hearing it is we're questioning the people that said that's where you want to put it. I
I
don't
think, you
know.
know, I'm not saying they don't know what they're talking about, I get it, but what are we gonna do with Furtaugh Field?
We've had Furtaugh Field for 50 years. I mean, it's out there.
What good is it sitting
Can't
there for
remember.
another 50 though?
Well-
Why not do something with it?
We've talked about it. We had a area organization that was going to put a big pavilion up there that I'm still waiting to see go up. But I don't know. It's not in the center of town. We've talked about doing walking paths, and we don't ever do that.
I think
so
you're in the center of town over there, because it seems that a lot of things have shifted up that way, and away from this area. I know that everybody wants everything to come right back down into the downtown, but is that a feasible thought? But as far as this design concept here, I'm in favor of going forward with the design concept so that we can get started on our beautification of the beach park.
All right, and I'm guessing that you're willing to make that a motion,
Yes.
and I would be the supporter of that motion. Move ahead with the $1,100 township contribution to the Russo plans that Ann's explained. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. Carrasco? Yes. Mr. Pankowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Next, we move on to resolutions and ordinances. And tonight we have one resolution, but it's kind of important and kind of lengthy.
Yes, especially the attachments. For that, I apologize. There is also, and what this deals with is our final budget adjustment for the year, and there is an additional adjustment on the board table involving the zoning and planning budget, wherein we'd be transferring $500 from vehicle maintenance to conference education and training in anticipation of the registration for a program for our zoning administrator in January. By way of attempting to sort of hit the highlights here, I'm looking at page 1 of the actual budget document. I think that's a little easier to compare where we started and where we're winding up. The beginning fund balance for the general fund is actually being reduced modestly. Conversely, the police activity beginning balance is being increased, and I'll get to that in a moment as to why. I also note that there are a couple new revenue or substantial revenue adjustments in the police activity. The $13,000 is relating to potential grant income, and the $13,000 is a reimbursement from our insurance company for a vehicle that was severely damaged, to say the least. And the $15,000 is the minimal estimate we're expecting, or had been expecting, from the gun auction. I'm told the number's going to be actually closer to $19,000. On page 3, you'll note a couple of significant adjustments, and looking at page 4, in terms of the actual total police fund expenditure budget, there's a pretty substantial increase. The primary driving factors there are overtime, healthcare costs, and the MERS retirement program. You'll note overall that healthcare varied more than normal throughout the budgets. That's due in part to implementation of the Affordable Care Act, which included age-based premiums. So we've got some variance between the actual budgets based on the age of the folks whose health care is charged to those various activities, and that we didn't know what those specifics were going to be when the budget was put together. Overall, though, there is an increase, I think, in health care. On the next page, on page 4, the equipment item is up. That's primarily due to the purchase of the cameras, the in-car cameras, which was offset in large part by the grant they received. Moving on to page 9, Ratliff Park, a substantial increase in repairs and maintenance. That's due in large part to purchasing materials for the deck. That was a carried over capital improvement project, and we obviously have the materials on hand to complete the work now. Moving on to page 11, Forest Reserve. We recently received some invoices from the Road Commission. Those were approved for payment tonight, and a substantial portion of those expenses was charged off to Forest Reserve, so the budget was adjusted with the expenditures going from $9,000 to $27,500, with a corresponding beginning balance going up. Old Orchard capital improvement on page 12, the expenditures were increased by $4,000 in anticipation of buying furnishings for the year. Potentially, we're not certain we're going to accomplish that this year, but it gives us the option if that appears to be advisable. On page 14, property O&M, there were a couple capital improvements scheduled that did not happen in the property O&M fund that will be carried forward or set aside. And page 23, sewer fund budget. There is a substantial receipt that was added to accommodate the S2 reimbursement for planning expenses, engineering, $49,500. The beginning balance actually was reduced, and capital outlay on the next page, on page 24, was reduced. As everybody's aware, there's a lot of uncertainty about when we were going to do the sewer improvements. So we're essentially, and frankly, I would not expect to spend the majority of that $50,000. We're keeping our powder dry for next year for all practical purposes. And I guess I would characterize that as the highlights. There's certainly a lot of other line items that were adjusted in the general fund in part to offset some of the increases I mentioned. So with all that, I am seeking the board's consideration of approving Resolution 2014-26 and thereby approving the amendments inclusive of the additional one on the board table.
Any members of the board that have questions about any of the items Bob highlighted? Because he did indicate a couple times these are highlighted items. There are other smaller ones.
There are, yes.
Yes. Any discussion? Okay, then I need a motion to adopt resolution 2014-26.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, I believe that was Mr. Binkowski with support from Mr. Weed. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes. Okay, resolution 2014-26, final resolution probably of this year, is adopted. All right, we move to other. We have 4 items under other, mostly of the appointment nature. And the very first one involves our planning commission.
Yes, in this case, we would be taking under consideration reappointment of 3 sitting planning commission members, those being Dan Gary, Diane Liller, and Christine Rogel. All have indicated they are willing to continue serving.
Okay, any comments or anything?
That's a 3-year term?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you need individual motions?
I think that would be advisable.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we nominate, or we
Reappoint?
reappoint, Dan Gary to the planning commission.
Support.
okay. Motion made by Ms. McGuire with support from Mr. Hinckley that we do renominate Mr. Dan Gary as a member of the planning commission. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes. Next is the reappointment of Ms. Diane Liller.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Ms. McGuire with support from Mr. Weed that we do renominate Diane Liller as a member of the planning commission. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes. Lastly, Ms. Christine Rogel wishes to also be reappointed.
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Weed with support from Mr. Gieske that Christine.
No, Mr. Binkowski.
Mr. Binkowski, okay. I'm getting kind of flashy here without looking, trying to pick out voices and failed here. So, Mr. Binkowski, a reappointment of Christine Rogel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, that takes care of the 3 reappointments. I think everybody watching or here realize that the members of the planning commission have staggered appointments, so not everybody is up for reappointment in one particular year. So, okay. Next, we go to a similar action. We have a couple of term-ending dates for ZBA board members. Ms. Irene Dunn, who is currently serving as chair, and Joanne Nink. Do we have any
I make a motion
motions?
to reappoint Irene Dunn.
Okay.
Support.
Motion's made by Mr. Weed with support from Ms. McGuire that we do reappoint Irene Dunn to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Roll call, please.
Mr. Binkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. Krasko, yes. Mr. Byer?
Yes. Okay, next, Joanne Nink needs to be reappointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So moved.
Okay.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Weed with support from Mr. Hinckley that we do reappoint Joanne Ning to the Zoning Board of Appeals. 3-year term, I believe. 3?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Ms. Carrasco, yes. Mr. Pankowski?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Fire?
Yes. Okay. Thirdly, another one of our boards, we have 4 of them, and this is the 3rd one here. The Oscoda Ensemble Building Authority. Bob?
Yes, this is the body that governs the tax finances collected by the senior center. In this instance, Robert Hodges, who currently serves as chairperson, has a term that will expire at month's end, and Mr. Hodges has indicated he's willing to serve again. These 2 are 3-year terms.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Bob Hodges to the Building Authority.
Support.
Okay, motion by Ms. McGuire with support from Mr. Gieske that we do reappoint Mr. Bob Hodges as member of the Oscoda Ensemble Building Authority. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Ms. Carrasco, yes. Mr. Pankowski?
Yes.
Mr. Fire?
Yes. For the benefit of the audience, this board is made up of 5 people, 3 of which come from Oscoda. Mr. Lloyd Canute is on the board now, and we have a vacancy that I mentioned 2 weeks ago and have had for some time, and Mr. Hodges from Oscoda. And the ensemble representatives are Mr. Jack Barnes and Mr. Bill Brandt. And their terms, one of them is up now, but that's not our business. That's ensemble's business for reappointment. So,
I would like to fill that vacancy if you
Great.
guys want, somebody wants to make that motion.
great. I would make that motion. Jump right on that.
Support.
Okay. I make the motion that Jamie McGuire serve the vacant Oscoda seat on the Oscoda Ensemble Building Authority, and that was supported by Mr. Weed.
Oh,
I don't
I'm
think
not sure she can.
I'm sure she can.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I was on it, and I think I had to resign.
When you were
Because
elected
official.
this
I was
board.
elected.
Oh,
Guess we can table that?
Yep,
Yeah, it's been vacant for a while, but check on it, it's worth it.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I tried.
Wasn't Steve Pappas on this?
He was also,
Yeah.
and then I think he had,
He has resigned.
We'll check on it.
yeah.
You could be right, so. Okay. Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
So, we're gonna get you. All right, so, motion to table. I'll make the motion to table this upon a little investigation until next year.
I'll support it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Pankowski?
Yes.
Ms. Carrasco, yes. Mr. Fire?
Yes. Okay. Final item, I believe, is the prepayment of December 2014 bills. I think we have a misprint here.
Yep.
Prepayment of December 2014 bills, authorization to do so. Jamie, you want to explain that a little bit?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Usually when in our board packets, we have the financial reports and there's prepayments that we are allowed to pay between meetings. And then there's a list of bills that we approve tonight that we write the checks the next day for. Because our next meeting, we won't have that opportunity to have the board approve those bills. We're asking tonight that you pre-approve them, and there will be a list at the next board meeting, and that will be our prepaid list, which will be a lot longer than the regular list.
Okay. All right, any questions, anybody?
Just another thought too, the finance committee consisting of Chris, myself, and Bob, we will be meeting to go over those bills before just prepaying them also, just so you know.
Okay. And that's a review that you undertake all the time?
Every 2
time,
weeks. Mhm. Go over every single bill.
the morning of the actual meeting, second and fourth Mondays, so. Okay. Motion to allow Jamie to do this?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Hinckley with support from Mr. Weed, that we do go ahead with this prepayment arrangement. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Gajewski?
Yes.
Ms. Carrasco, yes. Mr. Pankowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes, motion carried. Public comment. Anybody? Anybody have anything you wish to Okay, I might mention that, a month or so ago, Mr. Isagary, who is with us tonight, made a comment. We were talking about a lot tonight about Furtaw Field and one of his comments. And he's made several worthwhile comments that we've tried to carry through. One was, let's get some railings on these steps from the boardwalk down to the beach, down to the sand, and we did that, I think, to 2. Yeah, but we only went with 2 because they came up with other jobs that had to be done, seasonal jobs and things like that. There may be more, next spring. But another one of his suggestions, which I thought was a good one, and I kind of talked to Bob about that today, was putting some lighting on the Paul Bunyan statue at Furtaw Field, nighttime lighting. That's a good idea. So we're gonna check that out and see what it would take, things like that. So, okay, board comments. Okay, hearing none, then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. We are adjourned.